I could not agree with more of what you said and the way you put it, Mr. Chairman. Everybody, including the people who are testifying in this panel, have been trying to get us out of this muddle somehow, and I think all of their intentions are beyond question. I think this is a very difficult Gordian knot to untie, and trying to make some sense and understanding it, listening to what you have just said, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note that for a long number of years, nobody came to us to confront our obligations and responsibilities from any federal agency, including that which is before us today, or those which are before us today, saying that we need more resources. As a matter of fact, the previous administration seemed to have a philosophy, if not an agenda, for deregulation rather than more regulation, and did not want to provide the resources. Chairman Frank, as a matter of fact, had a proposal to more fully provide assets to the SEC and SIPC for additional resources to be able to do the kinds of investigations that were obviously needed, and that was moving forward until it was scuttled at the time by Mr. DeLay during a different congressional leadership. It wasn't until Chairman Shapiro came along and doing the fine job that she's doing, started asking for additional resources so that we could do a better job prospectively. But that does not necessarily resolve the situation that's before us right now, as it has already regrettably occurred. I think there's a difference between the average citizen investor being told that they didn't do due diligence, which certainly many of them did to at least 100% of their capability, ability, and legal limits of what they could do for due diligence. But certainly our agencies could have been doing a little bit more of a better job, including coming to us and telling us over a large number of years, a long number of years, that they couldn't handle the workload, that with the complications and the large number of investments and investors and the complications of the system, that they needed additional assets. We did not see that. We did not hear that. And we rely upon the administration. We don't have the tools. That's not the function of the Congress. We do oversight, which means we rely heavily on what the agencies tell us, can ask, and try to supervise whether they're applying their resources, which they didn't ask for in this case. I have several questions to ask. In what we just heard in our testimony from this panel about the smaller investors versus the larger investors, is there a distinction in either of your minds in the morality of larger investors versus middle-sized investors versus small? Are one more immoral than the other? I'm not talking about specific individuals.
No, I simply don't know how to answer your question.
If you're wealthier and make investments, does that make you immoral?
Absolutely not.
Are they more suspect because they had?
Absolutely not. I think that's why the trustee, in the Madoff case in particular, has done a rigorous investigation of very complicated facts and started 14 lawsuits. Some of those lawsuits assert knowledge or a knew or should have known standard. Others do not. So certainly with respect to the former, the trustee is doing his job, and he is trying to return to the common pool of assets, defined in this case as customer property, the largest amount to distribute to the greatest number of people consistent with the law, and he's doing that. To get to your point on morality, I'd like to turn it to a case of practicality and compassion. The trustee has taken the position that he sent a letter to everyone who received more than they put into this scheme and said, come and talk to me. If you're, if it's something that you withdrew over time and you can't pay, but when the trustee isn't going after you, that makes no sense in any sense.
What's the difference if you withdrew it over time or if you withdrew it late in the game, rather earlier in the game?
The answer to that is, in all Ponzi schemes, going back to the original Ponzi scheme with Charles Ponzi, people who get out the day before, and Professor Coffey spoke to this rather eloquently, should do no better than the person who didn't have that good luck. And that's just been the law as enacted by Congress since at least the 20s.
So it's a matter of luck?
No, it should not be a matter of luck, sir. That's the whole concept behind bringing money back in. And I think in this case, the trustee has exercised his avoidance authority with discretion and compassion. He hasn't reached back to the small investors, particularly people who have no wherewithal.
Is it possible in your mind, speaking of compassion, that there are large investors, and I'm not advocating for anybody here, I'm just trying, and there's a problem, because this is a zero-sum game. When somebody gets somebody, it's coming out of the same pot of money of people who are all losers. Is it possible in your mind that you can conceive of situations, many of them, where larger investors are more desperate than some of the smaller investors?
I haven't seen that in this case, sir.
You think there are no larger investors, say someone with $100 million who's doing something and invested the rest of another $100 million because they're that big an investor and is now upside down in their real estate or house or business or property, despite the fact that they took money out, and now they wind up having paid $50 million in taxes to which the government should not be entitled, have borrowed from the banks to do things on a business, have invested other people's money along with their own to do something, and are now being told that not only do they have nothing, but they owe back $200 million?
I can speak to a number of those points.
That's at least as desperate as the other people for whom I have great sympathy, who had $200,000 and invested $100,000 and lost it. They only lost $100,000. A lot of people aren't sympathetic because they think that's a lot of money, but they might still have some. It's how do you morally make a distinction here? And is it possible in all this formulation that somehow you can come up with a Solomonic kind of solution and splitting according to some formulaic way how to deal with all these people?